Hey,
Yes,
how's
sir.
everybody going?
Welcome.
Man.
The Sons of the Warrior, episode 3.
Oh wow, isn't that
Yeah.
special?
This is the third one. Wow.
Third.
It's been a hot minute.
Fun
we
fact
have
for
been
you.
on vacation, it feels like. My
It's been
Not
a
on
little bit.
vacation.
It's been 2 weeks.
We've actually been working very hard.
Facts.
All right? Fun fact is I was out of town hanging some big iron. All right, y'all don't know nothing about that. Let me tell you about it.
So-
We're building the Walmarts. All right, maybe not the biggest iron, but it was good. It was fun getting back into it. Anyways,
Not to be confused.
my
with
little
Walmart.
brother. All right,
It's the
Walmart.
plural.
James Mimo. He's my little brother.
Oh, he's
he
gonna
was
love
he
that.
was into it. He was lead connector while we were out there, flagging the crane with the radio, everything. I was proud of him. He's doing good. He did a great job. So, anyways, that was fun getting back into it, and so that was a week job out in Alabama. We come back.
It wasn't a
and
strong job.
Was it?
It was a good job. It wasn't big. It was small, but it was fun.
Was it cool seeing him? Because he had just started working with you a little bit
Yeah.
right as you left.
See, I was doing iron work a couple of years, and then he come in and wanted to get into it. So we started working together for a little bit right before January 6th, and then I took off, and so he was working the 4 years while I was gone, and he picked it up. He's pretty good at it. Anyways,
Some of those clean welds.
yeah, he's a welder now. I mean, he's
So,
solid
opposite of mine.
work. And then he's about to get married. Isn't that crazy? But anyways,
Man.
I come back
Yeah.
after a year. I mean,
You mean 4?
after,
3? 3.5?
After
What a
no,
year of-
we'll get back into it. I get
Okay.
back after a week, and then Joe takes off to get
yes.
his truck
Back,
Oh, yeah,
back
yeah,
to the
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Why we're
Pres-
actually all
yeah,
here.
why we? And
Yeah,
then
he
now he
goes-
just got back, and now we're
goes to
back
Georgia.
back into
Got
the
his truck back.
studio.
Yeah. So I drive a 99 7.3 liter F250. It's a work in progress, but
How many horsepower?
real close to 500. Yeah.
All of them.
Very
Yeah.
solid. Very
Or a
solid.
7.3. That's quite extraordinary. So, I went up there, thought I was going to also get some of my stuff back. Turned out it was all gone. So I had to buy new tools, put injector O-rings in, do the whole 9. She drove 5 hours back, though. No test drive. We just threw it together, and I was just praying the whole way back. I was like, oh, my God, just let me get it home. I cannot afford for this to break down and have to tow it. Oh.
I feel like all of y'all, when y'all got back, realized how much stuff had
We were
gone
missing.
missing
No,
or
Yeah.
used up or was
You literally have
gone.
to start over.
Yeah.
It's like starting from scratch, and here we go. But
Yeah.
that's what I feel so bad for, the ones that don't. Like, we have family, we have places to stay, we have, a little bit of clothes and stuff like that. But the ones who didn't have nothing,
Oh yeah.
man, I feel bad. Like,
But
they
there's a
literally
lot
start
of
over,
guys
and
I
you're
was in
just
there with
feel
that their whole
like-
families basically just pushed them
Abandoned.
away,
Yeah.
abandoned them, all by themselves going through it, and
That'd be hard.
that'd be tough. I mean, that'd be real tough, and they're still struggling, trying to get their life back in order. And it's you wonderful blessings. You're out of jail.
Oh, yeah.
You get your life back, but still you have to basically start from scratch. And we were really blessed. Our family backed us up the whole time, and we had stuff to come back to.
And the community. I mean, they,
Yeah. A lot
give
of people
and go
around us.
and
yeah.
donations. I mean, I had a bunch of people give here at the shop, just, stick $1 or $2 in there.
Oh, and that,
Some people way more than that,
Yeah.
but it just,
No, it helped out.
And we don't live up north either, so like we came back to a public that was very receptive of
Yep.
us. Besides
Yeah.
maybe our sheriff, but beyond him, so far everyone else I've met, they're super excited for us. Met an old lady at the Dollar General. Don't know her name, or I wouldn't have just called her an old lady, but she was probably about 70, 75, and she read my shirt and it said the courage of freedom. And she's like, "Oh, it's such a cool shirt." So I was sitting there going, "Should I tell her?" And I was like, I'll just tell her. I was like, I'm a January 6th defendants. I just got home. She goes like, and her eyes lit up. She was so excited. She's like, I've been praying for y'all. This lady I've never met before. And she just wanted to like hug me. And I was like,
Yeah.
she's like, we're so happy you're home. And so, I mean, just, I guess where we live is just, lots of.
oh, yeah, no. Well, Florida had some of the most prosecuted per state. So
Taking number one, Florida man
very
Florida man.
and Florida woman
very supportive community.
or women. I don't know. Is there
Hey,
multiple women?
I didn't go off and hang
Yeah.
iron or go get a 500 horsepower truck, but what I did do is go out and shoot some night vision.
Oh, tell us about it.
Yeah, me and Joe went out sometime in the last 2 weeks, and we got invited to a night shoot and shot some under night vision with the lasers and just IR stuff. But this was a whole shoot centered around just training. And so we did pistol, we did rifle, pistol, and it was so cool. We did one pistol drill. It was like a Star of David that you ran and you had to engage different targets from different positions. And you're running with your night vision on, watching your step. And you could use white light too, but it was because it was a after dark shoot. So
Yeah, and it's not bragging. I wish we had video of it, but I'm running first time under night vision, and I hit a reload, and I hear behind me, "Wow, that was a good reload," and I'm like, "Ooh, thank you." And then I hear behind me as I'm running, "Wow, he looks like John Wick," and I was like, "Man, the compliments are just rolling out right now." So I really wish I had the video of that.
we
to
do
put up,
have some
Hey, but
video, and
practice.
we may be able to put it up, but it was
the
of
thing.
other drills. We didn't have any video.
We're gonna really
On the
test
whole out and about.
Liv's editing ability with the B-roll
Oh.
that we collected. Maybe she can
Yeah.
insert it right now.
Yeah.
All right,
Whoa.
green,
There.
green. You see that?
But
Insert.
getting to try, because you build these guns and you get to shoot them a little bit. And I know y'all got to really try your guns out a little bit on the out and about.
That's what I was
but
gonna say. Yeah, we had the reloading practice.
Mhm.
yeah, but you didn't really get to
Under
shoot them.
reloads.
And
Yeah.
the difference between
Lots of night vision training too. Did a lot of
Yeah.
hour-long walks and whatnot in the woods.
That's what
Which-
I've not done yet is spend hours and hours under.
You
night
definitely
vision.
need to.
Yeah,
Because
a whole
it's
nother
not
thing.
your depth perception. Everything's off when you put the night vision on. When the branches are hitting you and stuff, it definitely is something you got to get used to. But it definitely changes the game. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you want to feel like a predator. I mean, that thing it changes everything.
The hunter.
Once you become, have the night vision set up, you become the hunter. That's for sure. I guess predator really wouldn't be.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't like that. The hunter.
Well,
I can be skewed
in
to a
what
wrong way. But anyways.
situation you are. 'Cause
Yes,
you may.
but it is a very dangerous. You don't want to mess with people, and that's what SWAT teams, different high up, security teams, they all run night vision for a reason. Is because it changes. The
you
game.
own the night.
You
There
own-
is
I mean, such a
no-
huge, advantage
strategic advantage
to
your-
someone that's just holding a flashlight.
Yeah. If you do not have it, and like Grantham says, I can't say what he says. Never mind.
You're gonna die to somebody that does.
It's not masculine
Yeah.
if you want men to see your light at night. So that's
But that's the thing. You talk to a lot of guys, and especially y'all know about it when guys come in here and they'll make fun of you, like, "What the heck do you need all this stuff for? That's too much, man. You got a night vision on it. What are you ever gonna use that for?" And we said it last time. Lord willing, you never have to use it.
Yeah.
But that one situation that you do, and the world goes backwards, and you're in bad places and bad situations, and you're dealing with people that do or don't. But to have that extra advantage with the night vision, or to equalize the situation by having night vision, you
Oh.
should have. I mean, if you have the opportunity to have
All
it,
day.
it's,
yeah. If you don't have it and the other guy does, just imagine being a duckling and then the other guy has an AR-15, and that's pretty much what you are.
Well, we were talking about it earlier, like because you don't have to worry about anything bad happening now.
Yeah.
Trump's in office, he's cleaning house. Well, what happened when he's gone?
Yeah.
If you don't have these skills honed, now, because remember when he was elected the first time, oh, well, we don't really have anything to worry about. We got Trump in office. He's going to win his next term. And then Joe Biden comes in and boom.
Now we're all
World
getting
War
hunted
III.
Now we're all in
and
jail.
rounded up.
We're
Like,
on
wait
the
a
verge
second.
of World War III every day.
Yeah.
Like you turn on the news and it's like, oh,
Oh, well, that's going to do it right there. He just did it to us.
and
No, it is
And-
only by the grace of God that we didn't get into World War III, I believe.
oh, yes. No, it
And,
was. And
Yeah,
because we would have been fighting on the home front.
it would have been rough.
And-
Yeah. And you never know, next people that get into power, what might happen. But I believe it is our duty as men and as, fathers that are out there. You are a protector, and that is, God has given us that responsibility to be the protector of your family. It is not the government's job. It's not your state's job or your county's job to defend your family. It is not the police's job. It is your job, being the man of the house. You have that responsibility to defend your family. And, just buying a gun isn't enough. That's the bare minimum. Putting actual practice in, actually going out, shooting it, getting yourself into scenarios that, oh, wait, the gun just jammed. Let me drop the mag, reload it, put another round in it. And, practicing these different scenarios, everything going bad, what do I do? The more those things go, become easier and easier and easier.
Second nature.
Second nature, because when that one time bad things happen, I mean, your heart
You
rate's
want it
going to
to
be
be
taking
instinct.
off. You're going to be so scatterbrained. If your mind isn't already just second nature reacting to knowing how to reload a gun, knowing how to clear a jam, all these different things, then, you're setting yourself up for failure. So,
Yeah,
it's just
whether
something I
whether you're
believe-
training with night vision or
Yeah.
whether it's just a handgun to
Yeah,
protect your
whatever
house
it
or a
is.
shotgun, you want to be proficient with it and you want to have the skills necessary. I was listening. This was a dig on me talking about protect. If you're in a state, say that you can't carry a handgun, because thank goodness at least
Yeah.
we can carry a handgun here in Florida. But like you're in a state that you can't carry a handgun, protecting your family, do you have the skills that you can go into a place where you may be confronted with somebody, and would you be able to protect your family? And I feel like I have skills, but I don't train regularly. Like I don't train jujitsu all the time, and I don't do those.
Do you want to train? I've been thinking about that.
know.
I
We need
walked over to
to.
Ross's yesterday. He wasn't there, but I was going to talk to him about how much it's going to cost to go over there. And I was like, I could get Gabe to go with me.
No,
We could all go, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But and it is a workout. I grappled Josh for 3 minutes, and I was huffing
It's tough.
and puffing and dying.
Oh
after
yeah,
3
no,
minutes.
because you're using your full body to fight another man.
Who's using all of his strength to combat you. I mean, so
And skill, technique, yes, that all plays into it, but conditioning, that's a huge part. And that's something that I definitely need to work on. We did get to go out a couple of times to Warriors Fitness Academy
The
and
Warriors
put it to
Fitness
work.
Academy. Let me tell you all about it. I think we touched on that
yeah.
last week, but it's the gym. All right, the Warriors Path is something we've been
Explain
talking
the Warriors
about.
Path and where the name came from.
Let me let's explain the Warriors Path. All right. I guess years ago,
yeah, it
we started
predates Sons of
talking.
the Warriors.
It predates way back. We started talking about that, but it was, what is the Warriors Path? All right, it's always choosing this is everyday life stuff. All right, this is, you go to a building, you see the elevator there. All right, there's also the stairs. What is the Warriors Path? It would be to take the stairs. Wow, to get that little extra exercise in. All right, you're going into the kitchen. The trash is completely full. All right, do I keep walking over to the cabinet, get me a snack, or do I change the trash out for my wife or for whoever's in the house? Warriors Path. Oh, let me do that. Let me change the trash out. All right. Hey, I got to go all the way outside to the barn. It's a ways off. Do I walk the whole way, or do I take my golf cart that I have, or do I run?
I would say you run.
What is
Oh,
the Warriors
yeah.
Path there? Let me run.
I can't stand to walk. It's way
Do
too
I,
slow.
and this is the Warriors Path. You just, every different scenario you have in everyday life is, let me take the Warriors Path. Maybe a little harder, but it's more efficient for
You're
my
bettering
every.
yourself.
You're bettering
Well, yeah,
yourself in
you're
everything
doing
you
the
do.
harder thing. And
You're
sometimes-
You're
what
trying to
was-
better yourself.
Roll off.
They say embracing the suck.
Yeah.
Embracing.
Yeah, like-
sucks.
Well,
That is
it's
this
good.
morning-
torturing the flesh. too.
This morning,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to have Tom drive me to come get my truck from here. Instead, I ran the 3.5 miles up here
There you go.
to come get the truck.
I'm not on that
Warrior's
level of
Path.
Warrior's Path
Very
yet.
good. And
Well,
that's the
Bray-
thing.
that
I
turned into a absolute nightmare. But hey,
We won't get into that.
yeah.
Yeah.
We could.
You-
but that's the thing. It's a more you do it. It sounds like it's not a big. It's very. I don't know, small thing.
Cliche
I guess.
or-
Cliche Warrior's Path. It started out as a joke. We'd always, just bring it up. Hey, take the Warrior's Path.
Warrior's
man.
Path.
What would a warrior do here?
Mhm.
And it was almost like a joke. But then,
But it was
I
almost a
started,
challenge,
You started
too.
getting yourself to think that way when you would, hey, should I go to the movies? Everybody's going out, or should I work out? I haven't worked out in a long time. Oh man, I really should.
Hey, you just
And that's tough. And but the more you think about it, the more you're like, what is actually going to better my life or better the lives of others?
yeah.
Am I just taking advantage of the easy life that I've been giving, or do I actually self-discipline myself to become better?
We were talking about that a little bit with the what it means to be a man.
Mhm.
Joey talking about is sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-sacrifice. Yeah, and it's not just like in this case, it wouldn't even be for others, but it's just sacrificing that pleasure that you could have taken, like the
The
easy
flesh,
ride up to the gun store, but instead taking the sucky path, to
Yeah.
better yourself, sacrificing your time, sacrificing your what's the word I'm looking
Tearing
for?
those muscles down.
Sacrifice.
Ease.
Yes.
yeah,
Your
yeah.
convenience. Your
So it just always choosing to do the harder thing, even if you don't want to, as long as it's better. Now, don't go just find ways to
Yeah.
make things harder.
Work
Okay.
harder, not harder.
But,
when it makes
hammer.
sense.
But if
Yeah.
harder makes things better, like it's going to make you
It-
healthier, it's going to make your family stronger, it's going to make your wife happier, it's going to make your kids have a better future.
Yeah.
These things, as a man, you just choose to go do them, even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's the biggest kind of deciding factor on the steps to becoming a man
Yeah.
is that right there. Is
Yeah.
putting others before yourself, just as Christ did. Christ loved the church, so he gave himself for the church. And that's sacrifice. So
Right. And I think that's neat how it's while we were in jail, it was it really opened my eyes to a lot of different people is they're constantly trying to prove their manhood to other men. That is a constant thing that happens in jail. They'd be trying to get in fights and stuff, and they'd be saying, like, bro, but I'm a real man, though. You can't be disrespecting me like that. I'm a real man. And I'm like,
he's probably the
if
same
you-
guy who didn't have a job ever in his
if you
life.
have to constantly tell me that you're a man and prove to me that you're a man, you probably aren't a man. If you're trying to convince me by verbally telling me I'm a man, I'm telling you, man, I'm a man, then you're not a man, and you're trying to prove to yourself that you're a man. And you have to actually, I believe you have to prove those things to yourself, manhood to yourself in a way, before you can actually and you start to live it to where you don't have to prove to somebody that you're a man. People can see it in you.
Talking about that,
Yeah.
you look at a lot of those men though in prison, and they never had, like we were looking up some statistics earlier, and it's over 85%
Yeah.
of men in prison never had a father in the home. So they never had that father figure to show them what a real man was. And they never had somebody to validate their manhood. So they're constantly either in a gang or, thugs on this, whoever they're surrounding themselves with, they're trying to prove that. They're trying to,
Yeah.
whatever society says, hey, I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to be tougher. I'm going to get in more fights.
Yeah.
And
All these things.
whether
that don't-
that's actually what it
prove-
means
yeah,
to be
exactly.
a man or not.
But you have no idea if you've never actually seen what a man is.
Yeah.
You are constantly searching to be a man, but no one really knows what it is. And there's a lot of different aspects you can take to say, what is a man, what do you have to do to finally reach that level. And we were talking about it earlier, how so many different countries and so many different, I guess, societies and
Yeah, like the ancient cultures and different things.
tribes and different things like that, cultures have, when you get to a certain age, you have to go out and prove you're a man,
Kill the lion,
kill
so to
this, or
speak.
do this certain test to prove to the village that you're now a man and you should be seen as a man now.
You're worthy of the title.
Yeah, you're
it was
worthy
a
of that
title
title.
to be gained. It wasn't just an arbitrary token. Oh, you're 18, you're now a man. It was actual something that the elders of the village, your father, the different village elders granted you.
Yeah.
We don't really have that in today's society. We have over 25% of our country grows up, like 1 in every 4 kids grows up without a father in the home.
Yeah.
4 times the global average. Like on average, 7% of kids grow up without a father. The U.S. is 25% of kids grow up without a father. How important it is for a father to be in the home, like every single statistic out there points to the fact that a father plays a pivotal role in the development of men, young men especially, but also women, because their daughters see their father as that masculine figure, so they know what to look for. The abortion rates in girls without a father in the home is astronomically higher than the ones with a father in the home, because they don't know what type of men to look for when they're choosing a partner, when they're
That's 100%.
and it's so sad, because our culture, the US especially, encourages single mothers to not have a father.
Oh, yeah, you don't need no man. You don't need nothing in your but
you're going to be
you do,
rewarded.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
and it's so much like you're almost making it harder on yourself. And yeah, I understand like things happen and stuff, but when you have young kids and you are trying to raise those kids, and then you got to provide like somewhere for them to live, all this stuff, and you're doing it on your own, is like overwhelming. Just raising kids on it themselves, like that's a full-time job.
Even
plus
being my
having
wife,
to provide, plus having to you just
Could you
get
imagine doing
that
it by yourself?
nurturing in the kids that you wouldn't have necessarily had if you didn't have somebody
and then just the
helping you out.
looking as a father, I see the way my wife looks at the children, and I see the way that I look at them, and just the different points of views. How I want to challenge my children and how she wants to be nurturing and loving and caring. And it's important to have both, because if you have just raised by a taskmaster, and it's important for the father to show love too, I believe. But the father is there to challenge his sons to be the man that God's called them to be.
And I think that's one thing that's really neat. I sometimes think, people be like, well, what do you have? How can you speak on what a father should be, and you've never raised any kids, or you're not a father yourself? But I have been raised by a father, and I know that because of how he raised me, this is how I think. Coming at a child's perspective, I guess, being now the age of a man, is what challenged me, to be a man, is when he would give us, certain challenges, when he would give us certain jobs, responsibilities to prove yourself a man, and even if they were small, when you were younger, the smallest thing was, oh, this is the way I can prove myself that I'm ready for bigger responsibilities. Go back the truck up to the trailer and hook the trailer up, or go do these different things, go feed the cows, and he would just let us do it by ourselves.
How many dings and dents.
And he would let us mess up, and we messed up a lot of stuff. But in those things, it was, you were in your mind, you were like, oh, this is my moment. I can prove to him, prove to another man that I am, becoming more of a man. Yeah. And trying to constantly not want to be, I don't want to be seen as a child. I want to be like these men. And I remember as a kid, we always had this fire pit up at the top of the hill, and we had a lot of family that would come down from North Carolina. A lot of older men, they would hang out around the fire, and they'd talk about all kinds of stories and stuff. And we would always go up there. We would never, I would never really know exactly what they were talking about, but I remember I wanted to look just like them. I wanted to be just like those men. You know, I would try to wear the overalls, the same stuff I try to have my pocket knife in my pants so people could see it, and you know, wear my boots just right. I didn't want to look like a sissy. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to have shorts on. For some reason in my head, if I had shorts on, I was a sissy, so, which is crazy. But that's what challenged me, you know, being around other men. And when Dad would give us certain challenges and different, you know, responsibilities, it was that proving, just like other societies had, you know, this is what you have to do to become a man. It's the same thing that fathers, I believe, is so important, is to allow your kids to mess up.
Oh
Allow
yeah,
your
it's gonna
kids-
cost
yeah.
you.
Uh-huh.
It will be tough, and that's hard fathering, but it makes such a big difference. And I mean, I know it made a huge difference in my life, just looking back at being able to go down to the barn and mess with certain tools. And he let us use the jigsaw. Was the first tool we were ever allowed to use. And it was so fun because we could, you know, make all these wood swords and wood guns and stuff. It's not an extremely dangerous tool. It's kind of hard to mess up, but we'd make the goofiest stuff. It was awful, but we loved it. We made it ourselves.
Yeah.
And then he let us use the router. I remember Gabe, he was the only one that was allowed to make use the router. So I would make my thing and then let him use the router. And then finally I was allowed to use the router. And I thought, man, I finally made it. I can use the router now. And I was using it and zoom, it sucks my finger right through that router. And the router is a you know, it has this little bit that just spins and it puts a
Like
nice beveled edge on
2,000 to
whatever piece of
3,000
wood.
RPM. So it,
And I mean, that thing's just humming. And if you use it wrong, it will yank the wood into it. And so I was
And your
using it
finger right
completely
along with
wrong. And I ran my finger straight through it. And I still don't have a fingerprint. I mean, it took that whole top of the finger off. But I learned to respect the tools. And I learned, oh, this is,
thank
this
goodness
is
that was
dangerous.
not a super costly one,
Yeah.
but
But I mean, it's hard because if you are raised to never, you know, have any
it's too
dangerous
dangerous,
things, you know, constantly be away from anything that could be dangerous, you'll never learn. You'll
Yes,
never
no.
have that opportunity to prove yourself. And, you know, I know Joe had them stories of when he played, you know, you could tell when he played football.
Oh yeah. So I played O-line and D-line. I remember playing on defensive line. I loved it. It was so much fun, so much better than O-line. But anywho, my dad, he says he would purposely act like he was, and it's kind of messed up a little bit, but he would act like he was ashamed of me if I didn't play good. He'd look at me, he'd see me look over at him, and he'd just bow his head down. But I wanted his approval so bad. He's like, and right after that, he goes, "You'd blow through that line, and you slam that QB down, and you would make sure that you made that play, and just to get his approval, just you know." And you know that's like one kind of scenario. But there was the other scenario is I remember being I was probably like 13, 14 years old, and my dad was like, "Hey, go move the Tacoma into the driveway." And so I was like, okay, I can do that. Easy. You know, I've never drove before. So I pull forward fine, and I'm going to go back up. And for some reason, my brain just forgot how sensitive the pedal was or what. And I mean, bam, pedal like to the floor almost. I'm spinning out, going backwards towards the house. And I remember looking over at my dad during this little short span of time. And he just goes, "Stop." And so I slam on the brakes and stop. And my dad was this was like different, you know, than normal. He was carrying. It was, you know, he looked at me and he was like, "Just stop." And then I stopped and he was like, "All right, good job. Put it in park." And I asked him, I was like, "Dad," I was like, you know, normally, you know, when I mess up, you kind of, you know, have to like discipline me, you know? And I was like, I didn't get disciplined. And he was like, "Well, you know, the big things they teach you. You knew you were about to drive through the house." He's like, "So that taught you. I didn't have to like get upset with you." And he's like, "And if you'd have drove through the house, I'd have just fixed it, you know." And I was just like, "Wow," you know. And so things like that, I remember just sticking out in my head. And
But
That's-
I think that's neat though. Just being, you know, now looking back at kind of our life, you have no idea, you know, these different sacrifices that a dad makes to raise you until you've, you know, kind of look back on your life and just the sacrifice a father has to make to raise their kids right, knowing that, I have to make these certain sacrifices. I have to give up these certain freedoms. I have to make my life a lot more uncomfortable just for the sake of my children. Raising boys to become men, it is a challenge, but it is
I'll say, as a father, I did not appreciate how patient my dad was,
yeah.
because you don't understand how much of a struggle it is to sit there and watch your son or daughter struggle with something, and it's like, I'm not going to help.
Yeah,
because
I
I
can
know
fix it
you.
right now,
I have
but-
confidence that you can do this,
Yeah.
and I'm going to watch you struggle, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm not going to just throw you into something that you don't understand how to do. I'm going to make sure you understand how to do it, but then I'm going to let you figure it. Put all the pieces together in your mind, and you're just sitting there like, if you're in a hurry, it is
So-
the hardest thing. It's like.
Yeah.
Watching paint dry sometimes, and God bless him, my daughter's 7 and my son is about to turn 5, and they don't have a lot of responsibility now, but it's teaching them the small things. Here, you can do this, teaching them how to sweep, teaching them how to do these things, and just watching them just leave a trail of dirt.
And someone's going to really appreciate that later. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but I know adults who I'll sit there and watch. I'll give them a task, and they cannot perform the simplest things.
Oh.
Yes.
So you're doing a service to the world right now.
Growing up, Dad did that with us. He took the time. He showed us how to do it, and then he let us have the ability to fail. Then you would, like, as a boss, hiring people that are. It's just like.
Poor Mr. Sykes.
Do you not have any ability to learn something on your own?
Yeah.
Or do I have to literally take you by the hand and show you this over and over and over again? Yeah. And it's like you don't retain anything. And so appreciating the ability to learn on your own and the lost art of not ingenuity, but just common sense.
Right.
Just teaching people,
No, that's it.
Common sense is so underappreciated, because understanding how things work and understanding just how life works in
But
general.
that's the problem with society is we've told kids that, your teenage years, it's to have fun. You go to school, you have fun. When you come home, I understand you got your homework, but you're still a kid. And you have to go through school. And then once you're through school, you go to college, all right? And college is to have fun. You're supposed to have
Just more fun.
Just more
More
fun.
fun.
fun on top of fun.
Find yourself
You're
with a
supposed
bunch
to
of
go
guys
out
and
there,
girls who are
just
also
have a good
immature.
time,
Yes.
and have more fun, and learn a bunch of worthless skills.
As a homeschooler, it's like, oh, well, you didn't get to have fun as a kid, and you didn't get to spend time with your peers. You didn't get to learn how to communicate. And it's like, no, I actually learned how to communicate with adults. Like, I was surrounded from
When I was 10 years old.
from 14, I got my first job, and I was put in to work with other grown men, adults that I had to work with and I had to answer to and be accountable to. And you learn how to communicate. I could communicate with people my own age fine. I didn't have any problem with that. You're learning how to talk to somebody that's a 45-year-old man that is like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like, because this is how I thought I was supposed to. And so you have to learn how to communicate with somebody, an actual adult, what you're going to have to do in real life when you turn 18 and get a job. We were not very rich, and so we needed money. So I went to work early and got a job. And
Well, just like the common sense thing you were talking about, like the parent's role, how the wife has one, they kind of balance each other out. Like everybody's like, oh, well, how come y'all aren't afraid to just, we have these stories of going walking out in the woods and all this stuff in the middle of the night. Like, oh, I wouldn't do that. Like, but growing up, like Dad, it sounds weird to say that, but we weren't allowed to be afraid.
yeah,
Like,
we're
Dad,
not just Florida men.
We weren't. Dad wouldn't let us go out and like, oh, I'm scared to do. He's like, no, you need to challenge yourself, push past that. You can't be afraid of the dark to go out to the truck, across the field and get something out of the truck and bring it back in the middle of the night. No, you got to go. Like, what's different about the night than the day? And he'd walk us out when we were real young, by the hand, out in the dark, to do whatever, and then told us like, there's nothing different between the night and the day. It's going to be the same.
Yeah.
You just need to, you can't see as much, but you don't need to go through life to be afraid. And so we'd have to walk through this, snake-filled swamps and stuff, but knew how to protect yourself so you weren't afraid. Like, why do you have to be afraid? You stab it with a shovel, kill the snake, move on.
Easy.
Don't just don't let fear
Light work.
control your life. And that's the difference between a mom. Like, mom was like, oh no, like, but then she stepped back and let dad, like, okay, train them to not be scared of stuff. And you have such more, I guess, freedom to do stuff if you don't go through life scared of everything. Like, if you're not.
Yeah.
Which a lot of hanging out with the Pollocks is, I'll tell myself, purged a lot of my fears. We we had some, especially I must say, even on the out and about, I conquered a lot of fears that I had, like jumping off into the water.
Yeah.
We were like 20, 25 feet up.
I have something to say about that. Like,
And it was that high, right? It was about that high?
Oh, it was
high. It was up.
Like, I have to say, go ahead, finish what you're saying, then I'll finish.
So, we go up there and I watch him do like a backflip off of it and all these other things. And I go ahead and make my way up the side of the little mountain part. And I'm looking down. I'm like, oh, wow, it suddenly just got so much taller. And I'm like, well, people are watching, so there ain't no way I'm going to walk back down, So there's only one way I'm getting down from here. I probably sat there for 5 minutes or so.
Full sin.
It felt like forever. And he's got a camera and he's like, go, 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 go. And he's like, all right now I'm filming. And I'm just like, and so eventually I do jump up. Once you broke the fear factor, once that was gone, boom, now you're jumping off a bunch, Or we did the time in the woods for 3 days. I'm not going to lie. I hated the dark. I just could not stand to be out in the woods or out just in the middle of the night. And so we did 3 days in the woods by ourselves. So it was you're going to get over it because you're by yourself now in the woods. And I remember my fire goes out. I'm sitting in my hammock, and I hear this thing crawling around down there, messing with my fire and everything
Armadillo.
else.
Sounds
Probably
like
it's a squirrel. Sound like a bear. Yeah. And
them armadillos are the noisiest creature.
So I just was like, whatever, you just sit back and you're like, well, I mean, the way I do it anyways.
If I die,
I'm saved.
I die.
I'm saved. If I die, if somehow I do die in this scenario, I guess I'm just going to heaven. So that's not bad. So,
Yeah.
that's an easy way to get over that. And, but you said like the dark and, it's the same thing as day. It's just dark. And I was going to go, well, not if you have night vision. It's the same thing as day.
Night vision.
Get your night vision here at
my
Rapture.
fears. I just carried night vision everywhere.
Always. Yeah.
But what you're saying with the jumping off the cliff. So we always growing up, you could not be. I don't know what it was about having a lot of siblings growing up. You could not let them see your weaknesses. It was like always a competition or at least. As a second born, I guess it was always a competition to not let the older one outdo. Like Gabe was my only older brother, and you could never let him beat you at stuff. As far as like, if he wasn't scared, heck, I'm not being scared. I'm gonna not let. So you always had to like push yourself to just don't show fear, and you just do it. And so then as we got older. We'd run and stuff, and you always had to, like, if you come up with a body after we'd run, if there was like a lake around or something, you gotta jump in the water. You gotta, push yourself. If we were going kayaking and there was a thing, you have to jump. You can't ever let yourself get to that point where you're like, oh, I don't need to prove myself anymore. I feel like that's when you get old. Like you become like,
oh man.
But in your mind, you did.
Oh yes,
so
no.
When we did to that, when we got
Straight
to that
up.
cliff, and they were jumping up, I'm like. I'm 30-something years old. I don't need to prove. I've jumped off enough cliffs. I've swung from enough. I don't have to do it anymore. And I was like, I do not want to have to jump off this stupid cliff. It's like, I was nervous. I was like, and that was my excuse. And so I didn't do it. I'm like, nah, I ain't going to do it. Like I got in the water, whatever.
I remember calling out and saying, I thought you were fearless.
Yeah. And so I was so
man.
ashamed of it. I'm like, did I just get to that point where I'm just like too old to do stuff and then become weak? And so the next, I'm like, we got to go back. Like, I got to jump off this. So we went back and I jumped off because I'm like, Air's just gonna be so disappointed in me if I don't
Disappointed.
jump off this
I
cliff.
can't do it.
She's nowhere around.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing. You can't let yourself
Become
get
comfortable.
Yes.
too comfortable.
Oh, that's good.
I guess it's the
Yeah.
challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you're scared, why are you scared? Push yourself to like
Yeah.
break through that fear. Yeah, there's a healthy fear of, safety, but if it's something that's, everybody else is jumping up, nobody's
Right.
getting hurt.
Yeah. What are you?
You're
what are you
just
saying?
holding
yeah.
you're holding
Yeah.
mentally
Right.
holding yourself back.
And that's the thing
to
with
giving you a
yeah,
barrier.
One thing with ironwork, you have to climb up on the different beams and high up iron, and you have to get on the iron and walk it. And so sometimes you'll be 15 stories high and have to walk across this beam, and it eliminates so many people from being able to do that job is because of the fear of heights.
Yeah.
No, but you're perfectly able to do the job. It's really not a very difficult job. It's just that fear eliminates so many different people from doing it is because they're too scared of the heights.
You're
and
just
I'm
the
like,
ground
well,
crew.
if you put that beam on the ground, you could walk it fine. It's, a big old massive beam. It's easy to walk. It's just you're afraid of heights. You're afraid of, the
Consequences of the fall.
consequences of somehow falling.
Even though
you're
Which-
tied up.
OSHA regulations,
We're on the side of
you're
a mountain.
always tied off.
But it's that fear and it's mindset. If you
Yes.
cannot
Oh, yeah.
control your mind and telling yourself, man up and just do it, because
Yeah,
fear
'cause
is
if you
controlling
just sit
you
up
right
there
now.
and think about falling the whole
Yeah,
time.
if you constantly remind yourself, do not be controlled with fear, you learn to hate it. You learn to hate fear. And I always catch myself if I'm afraid to do something or just be like, that's a little dangerous. I don't know if I'm gonna do that one. I don't really need to. There's no point not to do dumb stuff. Some things are just completely dumb.
Yeah.
Look, I got a story talking
Yeah.
about your the not being afraid of heights thing.
Yeah.
So we're on the side of a mountain, and we've pulled on some of these vines, and they just fall off the tree.
Oh.
Okay. And so he's like, I'm just gonna swing on this thing, and I'm like, oh no, don't do that. I'm like, that's a horrible idea. And so I watch him pull on it. He's like, all right, I think it's good. And he swings out. And when he swings out, I mean, he's 40, 50 feet off of the ground because, you're,
Yeah.
we're
as you go
literally,
out,
like,
you go farther out,
stand up
and
Mountain.
so I'm watching. I'm like, oh my god! But he falls. He's done. But the man just didn't care. I mean, it was that's my next one, I guess.
Yeah.
I go out into the dark.
Okay, but
The
story
heights.
on that.
The heights is.
You get people to talk you into screaming.
let me
yeah,
tell you-
don't
let me
do-
tell you about this one.
You
All
gotta
right.
be
Peer
careful.
pressure
Peer
is
pressure will
terrible.
get you.
And it shouldn't ever become arrogance. If you are led by
Yeah.
arrogance and trying to prove that, oh, I'm a man, I'll do this, it's the wrong way of thinking, and you shouldn't ever think that way because it only leads to, a unhealthy way of thinking. But if it is perfectly safe and
Yeah,
you
like
know
you said,
your
if everybody
ability-
else is doing it.
I think
your
the
ability
vine
to
fell
do
off
it.
after he got back.
No,
it
it
just fell off.
It was a
sometimes,
very slow
sometimes you can loosen it up. He probably
You
felt
could
it
tell
like
this vine
can't
was
lose it
connected
from
to
up.
6
Yes.
different trees. It was massive vine. It was perfectly safe. But anyways, there was this one time we were out in the woods, me and my cousin and Liv, and there's this big old hill. I mean, it was nice, and this big old vine. It was the most perfect swinging vine. It just went way out into the unknown and come back.
Well, it was a cliff. They had
Oh.
cut.
Yeah, it was a
cut like
full-on
a big
cliff.
old trench out.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think,
I
like,
remember it. But it was years ago, and
it
my
was-
cousin's like, shoot, man, let me get on this thing. He swings out. I'm like, wow, that was awesome. He's way out there. And so I get on it and swing out, and it was you were high up in the air. And as a kid, I thought I don't know, it was really high, it felt like, and come back, and it was fun. We kept doing it, and we kept trying to convince Liv, do it. We've done it like 10 times now. It's perfectly safe. What are you afraid?
It's about to break.
Yeah,
Perfectly safe.
You know
and
it's
so
coming.
finally we convinced Liv. She's like, all right,
Like,
I have to
I'm
do it, I guess. and she swings. She goes all the way out to the actual max height of where it can be, and boom, it just snaps.
Straight down.
And she goes flying, smacks the ground.
When she was,
Like I told you.
Like there's no
Well, for
way.
one, I was a
You were
fat
probably-
kid. I was a big kid, and they're like these little skinny. Like
well, you're
I'm 9 years
6
older than him.
9 years older. Yeah.
So it's like
he's probably 10
like
years
I
old.
know
and
in my
you're-
mind, like they're twice as heavy as I am. They're gonna, I mean, twice as light, and so it's gonna break when I get on there and I do it. Exactly how I
my
played out in my
goodness.
mind. It was funny though. I just sat there and laughed.
So you
And I
just
was
you,
like,
you thought it into existence. You got
No,
Yeah, that-
no.
things.
Sometimes it's just the
think
peer
it's just
pressure.
physics.
You-
it just
you-
happens.
Hey, I've got this 40-pound kid rolling out there, and then me at 100-something pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same vine won't hold that kind of weight.
But I believe,
fun.
you know,
But-
not just the. Oh, what were you gonna?
Yeah, going back to if you're afraid of it, then it's going to control you.
Exactly.
And I tell my wife all the time, I'm not scared of anything.
But sometimes
Except-
you have to tell yourself that to convince
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
No,
Constantly
and
get
that's
in your mind.
because God gives us fear for a reason, and I feel like most of it is to help us grow in our walk with Him, in our just daily life. Because the fear is like a warning. Hey, this could be dangerous.
Yeah.
This, even like you said, if there is no danger, if you've watched everybody else jump off the cliff into the water, everything's fine. But that fear, learning how to conquer that fear, and learning how to, because I remember Dad taking me out. I was deathly afraid of the dark growing up, and he took me out there, and he's like, "What are you scared of?" It was 12. I was 12 years old because I remember it. And after I realized, like, what am I scared of? I'm saved. I am going to heaven. If something, I guess I was always worried about somebody coming up behind me, grabbing me, and just silently taking me out. I watched a lot of war movies, and I was just I think it was the Green Beret when they snuck up behind the dude and grabbed his mouth and just slit his throat. And that's what I'm picturing in the dark when I'm out there and I can't see anything in these woods. After that got through to me, it's like, what am I scared of? If I die, I'm going to heaven. Why am I sitting here letting my life be controlled by this fear? Because it does. It controls you. Once you realize, hey, I've got this fear, I'm scared to death of snakes, of the dark, of heights. It controls your life. You literally can't do anything related to that, whether it's safe or not, because you're letting your I know people that are deathly afraid to go out into the ocean.
Oh, no,
because
speaking of
there's
that.
animals or
Is-
you can't see
Yeah.
the bottom or whatever it is. And it's like that's literally controlling your life. Something so enjoyable growing up in Florida. You live.
No, but I remember when Dad had to break that fear of me and my other brother Tom. I mean,
Captain
I guess I had seen a picture of a shark or watched a video of a shark somewhere
Week.
on the TV, and I had to be young, and wasn't a super great swimmer, but we could swim, but scared to death of the ocean. And we'd always go to the Atlantic, so you always had big waves. I was scared. I would never let nobody know about my fear because then I
we
knew
would
I
have
would
tormented you.
No, I would have known that Dad would have had to, teach me. And I don't know what happened, but Dad's like, all right, we got to go out into the deep part. And I was scared to death. And I'm like, all right, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. We're going to go out in the ocean. We're going to be just fine. And he had me and my other brother in both of his arms. And he's walking out. We get a little deeper and then till he's, neck deep. And I'm scared to death. I start panicking, trying to swim back. And I'm just bawling, crying. I mean, I'm absolutely broken. I'm like, I'm going to die. I know it. Big shark's going to come eat us all up. I know. I mean, so many. Because I had an extreme imagination. I mean, I could picture all these sharks and all this stuff happening. I didn't know what was underneath me. And I was just, absolutely screaming, kicking. And Dad, I remember him sitting there laughing. I'm like, what is he laughing at? We're going through the hardest thing of our lives, and he's laughing at us.
Hey.
Me and my brother are about to die. And
He was waist deep, so
that's
he's
it.
watching you splash around down there.
and but after a while, we finally just realized, I guess we're all right. I guess we're not gonna
we're gonna
die
live
here.
maybe.
And after that, we're good. But
Going back and thinking about it, you know, he did that with each and every one of us so that we wouldn't have that fear. But me as a father now, trying to do that for my kids, conquer that fear, because my son, Lord bless him, he's gonna go through that one day. I did that with my daughter.
yeah,
And took her out. She loves the waves. She loves going out with Dad because she's not a very strong swimmer yet. She's swimming, but the waves splash. She gets the salt water in her eyes, so she goes out deep with Dad. She'll swim in the waves with herself, but when we go out deep, she just does it with Dad. But Ben is terrified. He has that same so this story will be good for my wife because she's
yeah. But it has to happen. You
yes.
do
Oh,
have
it
to
does
be
because you
put in
can't let that
situation.
fear
No.
control you, and it's gonna be tears. There's gonna be tears because
Oh, it feels.
God bless
I
him.
remember it. It was like I was dying, and I'm like, man, I bet I was a sight out there, and it's uncomfortable. If you ever hear a child screaming or crying out, it's an uncomfortable
Oh, yes.
situation, and to have to put your child through a situation like that, I imagine it's extremely hard. But knowing it's for their benefit, it's it is something a father has
I
to
can't
do.
say that I wouldn't
And
be
it's-
laughing like
it's
Dad
tough.
though.
It's tough, and
It's like, what are you doing?
yeah.
Calm down.
I just had another. All my fears were conquered while I was with the Pollocks, apparently. I think we were at Anna Maria, I
Yeah.
think. And the boat we had taken to where we were at was, I don't know, probably 40, 50 yards off into the water. And so I left my phone on there because I jumped into the water and didn't want to get it wet. Well, turns out, middle of the night, I go, ooh, I don't have my phone. So I'm like, oh, I need to go get it. And I'm like, oh, it's nighttime. So I walk out to this water, and the Pollocks are all back at the Airbnb or whatever it was that we had. And I'm like, well, I can't not come back with the phone. I know that. And it's pitch black. And so I just had to suck it up, Buttercup. And I walked out into this pitch black water 50 yards out of
the island camping.
No.
Oh, was it?
We
not?
were in
Oh,
the,
okay.
you guys had painted a house or something, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
The
It's like courage.
ocean at night
Courage camp.
is
It's like
confusing.
fat camp, but
If-
for courage.
if you're not used to it, it's pretty
And then they took me to
intense.
fat camp.
Camp and courage
Now
camp.
that's a success story that could
Yeah.
sell.
That's for
hey,
sure.
go from 400
Yeah.
pounds to 200 and
Man.
Jared at
50.
Subway don't have
200.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that's it doesn't even have to be in like physical fear. I believe there's so many fears out there now that people struggle with really confronting people, talking to older men or older people,
Public
just
speaking.
public speaking, all these different, fears definitely, cuz that was one of my biggest fears was speaking out, cuz I'm not a good speaker, I kept thinking I don't really have anything good to say. There's so many people that are more eloquent with their words, a lot more, have a lot more to say. Who am I to speak out? But knowing that I was afraid of it, I'm like, well, even though these people might not even need to hear what I say, for myself, I need to prove it that I'm not afraid of it, and I need
Yeah.
to be able to speak out. And so the more you did it, the easier it became, and it became not a as big of an issue. Even though I didn't really have much to say, and I'm probably awful speaking.
January 6th probably helped a lot with that.
January 6th
Nightly
helped a
vigil
lot.
calls
We
and
we
then
talked a lot
news.
on the
The broadcast.
interviews,
and,
different things.
Yeah.
We're about out of time, but I want to read the verse. 'Cause
Oh, verse of the day.
We,
That's the most
we
important
picked
part.
this
That's it.
out, and we totally
We talked about it.
deviated.
We talked about it, though.
We
Little bit.
deviated so much from what we were going to talk about, but I think it was all good. But it's 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by Christ. And whether we be afflicted, it is for our consolation and salvation, which is effectual in the enduring of the same suffering which we also suffer. Or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation.
Yeah.
Talking about all those trials, all those fears that we go through, the Lord helping us to grow so that we can come alongside other people that are going through those same sufferings, who are going through those same tribulations, to be an encouragement, to be a picture of Christ for them.
Yeah.
Whether we see ourselves as that or not, but we're constantly be called to be a witness for those around us.
That's right.
And sharing those tribulations with others, sharing those sorrows and those
Which just like when we were in jail, it was funny. We had a conversation last night. My grandma came over and she's like, "What was it that got you through in the hard days, and like what helped you the most to get you through that time?" And I was like, honestly, it was every time you go through a hard time, you would remember, like even reading in the Bible, like Paul and the different ones that wrote scriptures in dungeons, and Jeremiah was in a pit for how many days?
Yeah.
And all these people that we watched, like we talked about it before, how all people are always watching, and that's how like their example of what they went through almost taught me that that's how you should go through something. Like Paul, when he was in prison, would write to all the different churches and was just like, rejoice evermore, all this stuff, and it was just in that state of
Constantly
encouraging them to be joyful. And he's in a dungeon, had just gotten different things like that. And I had just read a book, one of Fox's Book of Martyrs, on different ones of women that had been tortured just for being a Christian. And you have those examples in your head. You're like, I have a clean bed. I have food every day. I'm not sleeping in the mud. I haven't just been whipped. Yeah, we are going, it's terrible that we had to go through that in America, what we go through and how the prisons are, but we didn't have it bad.
And
honestly.
now you can stand up
compared
and be
to what they're, and so it's like now, like their example is what helped me. And it's like God can use our example to maybe help somebody else. And, and you just keep going, just like, his dad did the same thing to him, and his uncles and things. That's what we carry on to this next. And it's just neat how that is. Like God uses things that you go through.
The hardships,
testimony of the saints.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yes.
me and you at the same time.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, we do that a lot, but
But it's such an important thing, to understand that when you're going through a trial, not to just look at the trial, but to look at what may come of it. This is a test. And that's what kept, like you said, that's what kept coming into my mind is different men have gone through much harder. This is a test of your life. How will you handle this? What will they say about you when you come out the other side? All they hear about was, woe is me. Look what I'm going through. Look at this. Everybody knows. And I'm reminded, everybody knows life's hard. Everybody deals with hard life. You don't have to constantly tell people, life's hard. This is what I'm dealing with. Look how hard my life is. Everybody has their hardships. Everybody has that hard life. What helps people is when you can encourage through those hardships. Tell people, this is how I got through this. This is what encouraged me through this. This is how, I was able to overcome this. And it's really challenging to be overcoming fear. It's all mindset. Fear lives in the mind, and knowing how to respect things and how to, what is actually dangerous. I should fear this because it's extremely dangerous. But, being able to control the mind, and when you're locked up in jail alone by yourself, knowing you're facing years and years of this, that can almost become like a wave of emotion, can creep up on you and just absolutely throw you in a depression if you allow it. But to see it coming and say, whoa, control this, control your mind, control your emotions. Don't let this overcome you. Don't let this overpower you. Learn how to control your mind, learn how to control your thought, and that helps so much when you can see those things coming. And I still struggle with it so much. My sister knows my anger. I can feel it rise. I mean, I have a
Only
bad
when
temper.
we're working,
And it's so much of
has
I failed. You
He has
messed
such a high
up.
expectation of himself that if he messes
And
up,
if I
you don't
mess
get mad at
something
me.
up,
Yeah.
it's just you knew better. You could have done better than this, and you messed up. And I get so mad at myself because I have to do it again, or I have to make another cut, or I have to completely undo what I just did and do it another way because it didn't work. It makes me so mad and constantly reminded, hey, control yourself. And I'm like, shut up.
It's that,
I just want to be mad.
the perspective
Yeah.
where I say,
Yeah.
well, that turned out so much better than I thought it was going to. So, I mean, I can only have a positive
Yeah.
experience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Johnny's like, I didn't do it perfect the first time
No.
ever doing
and
this.
and it's not a and it
failure.
with
yeah.
no instruction, what am I? But
No, but it's so much of just, that testimony when you're going through hardship. What can you say about it? Did you let it beat you? Did you let it overtake you? Or did you see God pull you through it? Did you let God use that situation to his glory? And I believe that's what, when you're going through hardships like that, you can't do it in your own strength. And if you try to do it in your own strength, you're going to fight it the entire time, and you will not have a very good testimony through it. The only testimony you will have through it is, I should have let God do it. Look at all these scars I have that I could have given to God. And I believe that's what I tell people. That's what got me through that whole situation, is giving it to God at the beginning and saying, Lord, take this. This is yours. If it is your will for me to go to prison, let your will be done. And if not, let me have wisdom to know what to do. And each of those things, learning how to sacrifice, learning how to give it to God and ease your mind, ease those fears of what may happen, what could happen. And, giving it to God it changes everything. It changes how you just are able to rest, how you're able to sleep at night, and not having that just overpowering wave of just what if this happens, what if this doesn't happen. And because you could tell the different people that were in jail with us, how they struggled with it, how they fought the whole situation. They'd come all the time, what if this happens? What are we going to do if this happens? Or what are we going to do if this happens? And I'm like, well, we could drive ourselves crazy. You can drive yourself absolutely crazy with the what ifs. But if you surrender to God and say, Lord, this is your fight, I can't do it on my own. You're going to have to fight this, and give me that rest. It makes a world of difference.
not to quote Kane Brown here.
Oh,
But
no.
you don't have to worry about the what ifs if you know
Yeah.
God loves you. And
Exactly.
in his words, what if you loved all those what ifs away? And he can love all those what ifs away. Man alive.
Just
Love
knowing
the
that
what ifs away.
you have, like, if you still have breath, you have a purpose.
Exactly.
And that's what, different ones would come and do the same thing to me. Like, oh, aren't you worried that Trump's not going to get in and you're going to be stuck? I'm like, honestly, if I'm here, God has a purpose. And it don't matter if you're in jail for 20 years. If you're in jail for life, I was in jail with a couple of people that had life.
Oh, man.
And it's like, I don't know how I could get past that other than knowing that you have a purpose. And, being in jail is not going to hinder God from using you.
Yeah.
You may have like a prison ministry for the rest of your life, but you can have a purpose in that God can use you.
Right.
And it's like that can get you in, like, no matter where it is. Cinder blocks and razor wire aren't going to hinder God from working. If you go through life knowing that no matter where you are, if you're asking God to lead you, he will put you in places that he wants you to be. And it's like, just like Moses, like, oh, I can't speak. What if he had, like Aaron
What if he
was
had
the
trusted
one that,
enough?
trusted it. I always thought that, because that's my thing too. Like, I hate speaking in front of people. But through this, you get to where you're speaking more, you get a little bit more comfortable in knowing that when God wants you to say something, he's going to give you the words to say it if it's important. Just like those verses, like if you go before court, don't worry about what you're going to say. I will give you what you need to say. And it's like, what if he had have trusted God,
Right.
the whole thing with the calf and the different ones that had to die during that, that was Aaron had led them. I just think, those situations, God will use your weakness he almost, I feel like, picks
To his
people,
glory. Yeah.
picks people that aren't good at that to
Yeah.
use them so that he will be glorified.
Oh, you see
And
it
that's
so
the
many
thing.
times through
It's
Scripture.
so cool, like that. It's not in what you are; it's in what you let God,
Yeah.
use you for. And you can mess up 100 times, just like Samson. He makes it over and over and over and over again, but yet he's in the,
Yeah.
the
Hall
Hall
of
of Fame.
Faith.
And
But you think of
it's like-
Gideon as well.
yeah.
He's known as, his 300 went out and fought an unnumberable amount of, men that were coming against their country. But if you read the beginning of the story, he doubted so much.
At the beginning.
Constantly needed to be proven that God was there.
But God,
throw this
yeah.
stuff on, throw the
dude
Throw the
on
wool
on
down.
sheep's
the wool
sleeping
down
out.
and see if
Well-
it's wet. And if it is,
let's
back
do
and
the
forth.
other
Well,
way.
let me try it another
I
way.
seen it was wet, but can you make it dry?
And it's like, come on, man. But we do the
Could you
exact
imagine
same-
waking
Yeah.
up though the next morning and just be sopping wet when it was supposed to be dry because
Yeah.
it said it was just so wet around it? It's just like,
Yeah.
Could
man,
be
where's all
Oh,
this
we do
dude
the
God-
coming
same
God-
from?
exact thing. 'Cause
Which is kind of like,
we'll see
you-
God do amazing works, and then we'll be like, well, he did it that time. I don't trust him to do another one. I won't trust. I can't trust him to do this next thing. But we do the exact same thing, and maybe smaller situations. That trust
In your life,
Christ.
it's a big,
Yeah.
big situation.
It's kind of like you were talking about praying, and I remember praying those same things. Well, if it's your will, let us be God. I would tell myself, yeah, I'm okay with having a 10-year prison ministry, but I remember also in the back of my head, it would also be, God, I really don't want that.
100%.
But that's
Make
okay.
that
I
not
feel like
happen.
that's okay with
I'd be
being honest. Like God
Yeah.
knows.
but
No, but that's it. God knows our heart. Knows.
Well,
what we're dealing
even
with.
Jesus in the garden of,
Right.
in the garden of Gethsemane, when he's praying, he's like, if there be another way, make it happen. But I'll lay my life down if that's the only way.
Right.
And
Which
so,
me and Sam would read that together, and I would be like, it's so amazing because you get to see God, man,
In the man.
and
that-
God, all in the same, setting. Because he goes, this is what I would like, but if it can't happen,
Right.
it's going to be this way.
Yeah.
And it just, I
The-
almost wonder if he put that in there for us,
oh, he did.
so that he can show his humanity, and that we have those thoughts because we're human.
No, I think that's great. I mean, absolutely amazing how God, basically put himself into man, held himself back, not knowing
Limited
everything,
himself.
limited himself. That's what I'm looking for, in the flesh, and knowing that when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, you saw the full Trinity. Him knowing that I've come for this purpose, but not knowing everything. I don't
Yeah.
believe. He allowed himself to be
No, he limited
know
his
exactly
knowledge.
what a man goes through, and he showed himself to us, knowing that these are not. It's not a sin to have those thoughts that I don't want to have to go through these things, because jail was the one thing I did not want. Knowing to have that freedom, being able to run, being able to do these things, being locked in a cell would be tough. It'd be so hard. But saying, it has to be God's will. If you're fighting God, He's going to put you there. So don't fight him. So, but knowing that I have to be all right with it. I have to be all right with having a prison, because I'll say it, and it's easy to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But do you really believe that? And I would have those thoughts. You pray these things, but do you really believe it? Do you really? Are you really going to allow God to give you a prison ministry? I thought the same thing.
I hope so.
I sure hope not. I don't want a
I
prison.
hope so. Like I can actually deal with it. I'm
Yeah.
saying I can. I hope I can.
But it's that proving to yourself, proving to your own mind that I can't be afraid of these things. I have to truly believe these things, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves that you are afraid of nothing except for
And-
God Almighty. And those things sometimes you do have to prove to yourself constantly.
And speaking on that, and I know we're going like overtime
That's
or
all
whatever.
right. We can,
But you have here in verse 5 of what he read there in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 5, for as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by Christ. And then verse 6, and whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer, or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. So you get to see here, like, what you're kind of talking about. We have to be we have to be okay with it. We have to stand firm. I know there's guys in jail who would come up to us and say, you know, I believe it because you believe it. You believe it so much, I believe it. You know, and but that's kind of what he's saying here. He's like, we watched the suffering of Jesus. We know what Christ went through, and that's our consolation. That's our comfort. The fact that God knows what it's like. Yeah. That God had to go through the same things that we may possibly go through. And then verse 6, you have whether we be. So now Paul is talking about himself and the other apostles, that their suffering, or maybe the lack thereof, maybe we get saved from it. Either way, this is comforting to you. It should be comforting. Either God delivered us, and now you got to witness it, and you know that what God can do, right? Or we're going to be delivered in the end. Either we're going to suffer, and it's going to be okay, you know? And I remember we first got in jail. I got in the Christian pod in Orange County, and the first sermon that the preacher preached was, and I'm sure it's probably a popular one in jail, but it was the shackles falling off and then walking out of jail with the angel, you know. And I sat back, I called your mom and dad, and I talked to them about it, and I was like, that's going to happen. We're going to get out of jail. But that testimony was comfort, right? Yeah. So this verse, it played out in real time. You know, I wasn't necessarily even thinking about this verse, but I was like, I have the hope that God is going to deliver us. Yeah. Because he's done it before.
Right. Yeah, you were comforted.
And it's kind of like,
Paul.
Was it Ollie?
Yeah.
Well, the doors can just open, you know, if they, you know, and so
Ollie is my nephew, you know, my brother-in-law's son, and but he's, I don't know, 10 now, I think.
He's
9, but they would always be praying for us if I were in jail, and that's where he's like, you know what? I mean, the doors could just open. I mean, he had that childlike faith that just we should all have, because that's 100% true. He could do that, and he did, though.
Yeah.
And that's what.
But he had the consolation. Yeah. He had the comfort. He believed God.
Yeah.
You know, so he sat back and he said, I know Johnny's going to get out. God can just open the doors.
Yeah.
And, you know, and God did, right? So on January 20th, God had Trump sign the pardons, you know, and then we all walked up out of there, you know. The guards that were keeping us there had to open the doors for us to walk on out.
Yeah.
Prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. Is like, that's exactly how it played out. And it's just so humbling. You know, we listen to all these stories and we read the Bible and accounts of different things that happen for other people. But when it happens to you, like, it almost, like, even now, thinking back on it, it's just like,
wow.
It actually happened. Like, we're just, not even 2 months ago, we were in jail. And I was looking at pictures, or we were
getting ready for
listening to
trial.
some videos and stuff. And you bring back those memories and seeing that orange again and the doors. And it's just like, we were just there.
I saw a picture today of our pod
I see.
and on Facebook, and it made my heart kind of race. Like, I saw it, and I hated everything about it. I was like, I thought I was going to get, like, some sort of comfort from seeing that. I was like, no, I don't want to. That's awful. I don't like it.
No, but it's crazy, you know, being out, seeing God, real life miracles.
Yeah.
And he does it so much in our lives if we just allow him to work.
Yeah, he still is a God of miracles.
Exactly.
And the miracles didn't stop in the Old Testament or even in the New Testament. They're still going on today.
So many miracles in so many people's lives, just constantly. God still does work. Yeah. We just a lot of times don't let our hands off the wheel to allow him to show himself to us.
We don't have
prove
the faith
himself,
to
that
trust
faith.
Enough to let him work through us.
That's it. All right.
So what's our challenge for the week? We went over a lot. So
like, is it physical challenge? Should we start a
fear.
physical challenge and a?
I
mean, we
believe the
could.
mental challenge. All right, everyone knows what they're a little bit afraid of. Challenge yourself. Actually face that fear at least, you know, this week. Challenge yourself.
Yeah.
If you eat well done steaks, you know, maybe live a little dangerously. Try
Live
medium rare.
Well,
medium rare.
You're not eating a steak. If it's well done, you are eating
A hamburger.
Jerky.
Yeah.
you are eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're not even eating steak.
That's it. All right.
With that.
Physical challenge. All right. 20 burpees. Very easy.
Yeah.
Every
But People don't like to.
I
do
was
it.
just.
I-
Oh, I won't.
every day of the
Hate
week.
burpees.
This week.
I did some
Oh,
the
I-
other day at the
every
gym,
day of the
and it
week.
hurt.
That's a good challenge.
Ooh,
Oh, man.
20 every day.
20 every day.
Yeah, that's
you
not
can do
light
it.
work, baby.
That's
No.
light work. That's
shouldn't-
doable.
Shouldn't
That's
take you very long,
doable.
but you do have to
Yeah.
purpose yourself to do that little bit of
Yeah.
exercise.
Gabe was talking about the burpees earlier this week, and I go, man, there was a time where we were like, oh, we're just going to do 100 at the end of the workout. As you know, just take your time, no race. And I'm hitting them. Johnny's
always-
hitting them. We're just 100 in a row as fast as we can get them in. And I was telling Gabe about that. I was like, everything in jail was a challenge. Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that part was fun. I mean, not jail and experience entirely was
But
fun.
then we'd come
had
after
things
a
to
long
do.
day or something we do, and it just, you did not feel like working out. And then we'd like, well, just do a light one. I'm telling you, man, just do a light workout. No worries. And then I'd look
Hardest
over,
workout.
Joe's doing a little faster, and then I'm like, dang it, well, he
Yeah,
can't
let
do
Joe
it
do
faster
it
than me, and
faster.
I'll do a little faster than he. I see him pick it up, and then all of a sudden we're in a full-on race by the end of it. Like, was so much for doing an easy day. Good grief. But anyways, we could talk all night, I guess. I guess we're call it a night. Thank y'all so much
Yeah.
for listening. All right,
Get out.
catch y'all later.
Don't let those fears conquer you.
That's right.
Get your burpees in.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Oh.
Let
Ooh, yes.
comfortable be uncomfortable. Hate being comfortable.
Oh,
That's the real thing.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well
Yep.
done.
Warriors Path.
Well done, steak.
Don't know.
Don't eat it. Warriors Pat said
Spew
it's
it out
gotta
of my
be.
mouth.